Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, the show where we creep down into the shadows of Stephen King's work, especially the stuff he tried to hide behind his Richard Bachman pen name. Today we're taking on one of King's darkest and most fascinating stories, The Long Walk. This one's unique because it's actually the first novel King ever wrote. Back in the late 1960s when he was still in college, it didn't get published until 1979 under the Bachman name. But it's always been a fan favorite. For decades, people have said the story could never really be made into a movie. It's too bleak, it's too psychological, but here we are, 2025, and The Long Walk has finally made it to the screen, directed by Francis Lawrence. It's the guy behind I Am Legend and several Hunger Game films. So tonight, me and my co-host, we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about what makes the book so powerful, how the movie compares, what was changed, what was lost, and whether the adaptation lives up to the long walk or lives up to the long wait. However you want to talk about it. But anyways, let me introduce my co-host, Mr. Christopher Clawson. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. What have you been up to? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? How's the kids? How's the family? How's all that?
Everyone's doing really good. Just, been working a lot, and we're about to go to a music festival here this next week. So kind of been ramping up for that. Been going to the movies regularly. We just went and saw that new Leonardo DiCaprio film, One Battle After Another, that could be an entire podcast unto itself. So I won't say too much about that, but I really enjoyed the film, and the kids are doing great. So how about you? What's new with you, man?
So it's been a crazy past couple of weeks. Had some health issues arise in the family, and stayed the night at the hospital a couple of nights with my brother-in-law, which was interesting. It's been the first time sent me well wishes. I really appreciate that. But it was a crazy week, man. Crazy past 2 weeks with that stuff going on. But everything's, like I said, everything's good. So that's a blessing in itself. And then outside of that, just working. It's been crazy. Right. This is my busy time of the year. I work with school districts from K through 12, so they're all back up in the full swing of things. I've been playing catch up on that as well. And the stuff I've been watching or playing lately has kind of been spread out. I've been playing Sekiro again. I never actually finished it the first time, so I restarted that monster of a game from Software, which is it's great if you like challenges and fun. I don't know if you're a Dark Souls fan and have never picked that one up. It's worth a play. I think visually it's probably their best looking game. You play more of a samurai throughout it, so the battles are more about like parry timing, and you don't get really like any kind of magic or huge stat boosts or anything crazy. Like Dark Souls, you can kind of grind out XP and souls and make your character unstoppable. In some ways it's more forgiving, in some ways it's less forgiving. But it's a cool game. I'm about halfway through it now again.
Nice. That just reminded me, like, because you were asking me too, and I was kind of grabbing at things that I've been doing this last week. But I've been playing that game. It's not super new, but Alan Wake 2, which kind of ties back into Stephen King as well, just because the story of that game being a character who's an author who writes dark and mysterious stories.
So I have never gotten a chance to play any of the Alan Wake series. It's probably something I should pick up because I've always heard good things about it, but it's not one that I've ever really touched.
It's very engrossing. It's a story that, like, it'll just suck you into the story. It's really well done, and the team at, I believe it's Remedy, that makes those games, they're amazing. Highly recommend it. The first game is fairly old now, but I would still recommend playing that one too. So.
And what concert are you going to? What festival are you going to this time? What's on the lineup? Who's the headliners?
Oh yeah, Aftershock Festival in Sacramento. It's a big one. We do it every year, the wife and me, and now we were bringing our son along. and it's a 4-day festival. Headline day 1 is headlined by Blink 182. Day 2, I believe, is I'm trying to think. I can't even think of what the day 2, but day 3 is headlined by Korn, and day 4 is Bring Me the Horizon. But there's dozens and dozens of bands every day, so I mean, the list just goes on and on. I always look forward to this.
Yeah, I know this is so. Yeah, okay. So this is Aftershock. This is the big one for you guys. This is the one I hear about every year. I'm assuming.
I save up all my time off just to do this.
I'm assuming that Ice Nine Kills is on one of these days.
I wish. They're actually not at Aftershock this year, and kind of a bummer. But another band that we're a big fan of, The Funeral Portrait. If anyone's a fan of kind of hard rock or metal music, melodic, check out that band, The Funeral Portrait. They're not actually at the festival, but they're doing an Aftershock pop-up show in downtown Sacramento. So we're going to go to a little bar and watch those guys too after one of the nights, just for shits and giggles.
Some of those shows end up being better than the actual festival show. So that happened to me recently. Last year at Shaky Knees, the Dinosaur Jr. played a 1-hour pop-up show at a very small local venue here, the Loft. For anyone who's from Atlanta, formerly Earthlink Live. It's actually 3 venues kind of stacked on top of each other. But yeah, they played like a 60-minute set. And it was it's exactly what you're talking about, where they could play from like 12 to 1. It's like a 1-hour after party show kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was so damn happy that I went to that, because I didn't go to actual Shaky Knees, and I saw footage from that show, and I feel like I got the better show, like it being a condensed tight 60 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good.
Is exactly that. So they're aware, because we actually discovered them through Ice Nine Kills, because the lead singer of Ice Nine had guested on one of their songs, which kind of put them on our radar, since my wife and I are huge fans of that band. And then we saw them for the first time at Aftershock last year, got to meet the guys. Then we saw them later in the year at a little show in Bend, Oregon, which is a couple hours from where I live. And now they're, they're just one of those bands where it's like, if you get a chance to see them, especially in a smaller venue, super cool guys, you can go up and talk to them, and they're very friendly and fun to talk to. So
yeah, Korn will be a real fun headliner for you guys too. It has been 15 plus years since I've seen them live, but that was always a really fun show. So hopefully that night, the third night, I think is what you said, kicks ass.
Third night, I think night 2, I'm gonna skip. Oh, it's Deftones on night 2. That's what it is, and
what?
I'm really torn. And I'm not gonna skip Deftones, but I'm gonna watch part of Deftones. I'm gonna go over, because Dream Theater overlaps Deftones. So
man, skip Dream Theater, go to Deftones. That new Deftones album is absolutely phenomenal. There's going to be a whole review section on that on the Patton Report. My cheap plug here on the Patton Report. A whole review of that album. It's incredible. Dream Theater, cool. They'll be, Dream Theater is always Dream Theater. They play every one of these. So if you're getting a chance to catch Deftones in their, I don't want to say their home city, because they're not, I don't think they're from Sacramento, but definitely from California, I think that's going to be a pretty live ass crowd. That I don't know that I would want to miss that one if I was you, but
no, that's
their own.
That's like the hardest decision, because I really want to see Mike Portnoy, the drummer for Dream Theater. I want to see him doing his thing, and I feel like I haven't had a chance to see that. I've seen Deftones a bunch of times in my life, but that's why I don't want to miss them too, because I know how good they are. So anyway,
yeah, and you'll get to hear most of the new album, which will be in itself is really, really cool. But yeah, Dream Theater, I've seen them twice. It's always a fun show. Though I have seen various lineups of Dream Theater, as they kind of have a rotating lineup a bit over the years, or at least over the years they have. The first time I saw them, I think was like, I want to say it was an Ozfest or something. But I guess we should get dug into this. Let's start with the book. So I'm going to go through the book overview here. If there's anything that you want me to talk about in more detail, or if you have something that pops up, let me know.
Sure.
But let's go ahead and get this out there. The Long Walk is set in a dystopian America ruled by a mysterious military figure known as the Major. Every year there's a contest 100 teenage boys volunteer to take part of. It's a walking competition. The rules are very simple. They must keep walking above 4 miles an hour, day and night, with no breaks. If a walker slows down too much, he gets a warning. After 3 warnings, the soldiers who march alongside the road execute him on the spot. The last boy left alive is declared the winner and supposedly gets whatever he wants for the rest of his life. Our main character is Ray Garrity, a 16-year-old boy from Maine who enters the walk without fully understanding what's ahead of him. Along the way, he forms tense friendships and rivalries with other walkers, most notably Peter McVries. How do you pronounce the last name? Because when I read it, I pronounce it differently.
It's McVries. Yeah.
McVries. Okay, so I did get that right. Who became both his ally and his challenger, and Stebbins, the mysterious loner who always seems to know more than he should. What makes the book so haunting isn't just the violence, it's the way that King spends long stretches inside Garrity's head. And we read along and visualize in our head the boys talking, joking, breaking down, hallucinating, and ultimately facing their mortality step by step as they walk along during this contest. And it's a story about endurance, about authority and cruelty, and about the human connection under impossible pressure. And readers have often described it as one of King's bleakest novels, the darkest, one that there's kind of no coming back from. But it's also one of his most powerful in a lot of ways, especially for being as short as it is. So let's get into the book, man.
Absolutely. That is a great synopsis of the story. Honestly, it's up there for me as one of my favorite Stephen King / Richard Bachman stories. Bleak certainly kind of makes it clear what kind of story you're in for. I would compare it to a newer King novel that we'll cover somewhere down the line, Revival, for just being one of those that starts out a little hopeful and it just keeps getting darker. So
yeah, I mean that is, I think, the biggest thing about when they've talked about in the past of making this into a film, which they did do, and I kind of led into that at the beginning, is the hardest thing to wrap your mind around, right? It's similar to the Blood Meridian in that sense of there is no happy ending anywhere in this. Really,
right?
If you think about it, there's down a path of 100, 99 people are going to die in this thing.
Absolutely, you know that from the get-go, and you're like, well, I know that, and that's why I'm checking in and checking this thing out. But then King just does such an amazing job. Even, I mean, this is a very young Stephen King. He's probably 20, 21 years old when he writes this story. And man, like he had it at the point that he wrote this story. Like he really knew what he was doing for sure.
And it's one that's kind of influenced a lot of other things. Like, for instance, Twisted Metal, in a sense, was kind of influenced by this. You get the Hunger Games, obviously, and that all kind of ties back into
Battle Royale.
Well, the deadliest game, right?
Sure.
Battle Royale, I think, comes after this as a manga, and then eventually a great film, which I am going to see. That's coming in theater, so you guys be on the lookout for that. But yeah, it's kind of, so the most dangerous game is about one person being hunted. This is a kind of spins into its own thing, which falls more in line with your Battle Royale, like you said, or Twisted Metal. The idea of a major who can promise you anything you want, any wish to come true. Twisted Metal kind of takes it a step further with, if I'm pulling in a video game here, Twisted Metal takes it a step further of this guy being kind of a demon, and the wish he gives you may not always be the wish that you actually asked for. So you get kind of the genie twist on it a little bit. Whereas,
Well, you certainly, you have to give a whole lot more than you expect to get, the thing you want.
right. But yeah, so I guess let's talk a little bit about the movie. You saw it first. You saw it before me. And before we dive into kind of the overview of the film, what were your initial thoughts walking out of the theater after seeing it?
Honestly, I felt like the movie delivers, like if you've never read the story and being a big fan of the written work, walking out of the theater, I felt like it gave me everything I wanted from that story. Like it delivers in tone, the setting being, even though it's not in the movie set in Maine, it's actually set in the Midwest. That is perfectly fine. But I mean, it's like the characters and their motivations and just the way I don't know, for me, when I was reading the book and imagining these people, then the depiction that I got on the screen was like spot on. Like it's as good of a movie as you could possibly hope for that story.
Yeah, it's it's a weird one for me because before I saw it, I kind of got the rave review from you and your wife, right? And then from some of my other friends who are Stephen King fans, they kind of gave me it is all right. I walked out of it really enjoying it. As far as like an adaptation, I think they exceeded my expectations for the source material, which I think is all you can really ask for.
I would agree. I mean, it's like for years, the argument was that this was an unfilmable story. Like it, for one reason or another, it's like, well, you're just filming young men walking. Like how is that captivating for the audience? But it's not so much about just the walking as it is the connection of these characters and their journey together. And that's what King is known for. He's just known for character development and just making unforgettable conversations.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about that with the book overview a little bit. Is the actual story there is the conversation that happens along the way. It's slowly setting in that death is coming for all of them, essentially, the hallucinations and all of that stuff. And I think the film, for the most part, kind of they did a good job of showing that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And if you think about like when King wrote this in the in the late 60s, this is maybe, I'm sure he was aware, but it's certainly a response to the Vietnam War and sending young men off to their deaths. It's a not so subtle sort of, I guess, story
Another
that
anti-authority King book, anti-government book. Surprised this is also not on some sort of ban list. Probably is, actually.
I'm sure.
Said that.
I'm sure in some countries or maybe even some counties in this country, but that's the cool thing about books that I love, is that I've read so many books throughout the years, not even just Stephen King, where I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading this right now. It's so dark or depraved, and I'm like, that's the thing. It's like when you put something on a screen, there's a lot more people paying attention that are, there's a lot more focus, and then you have all the voices of the media and what have you, and parents and whatever are going to be complaining. But when you have a book, that's just an individual experience that I think less and less people are kind of taking these days.
Yeah, agreed. And I will say, for anyone that has not read the book or listened to the book, I believe this one is also available. The Audible version is available on the Internet Archive, so you should be able to listen to it there.
Or Audible. Yeah.
Or Audible. I believe it is also on Audible. Rage was a little harder to find on Audible.
Yeah, I don't think that one is on Audible, but I have a lot of books on Audible, and The Long Walk is one of them. Great voice performance from the voice actor that reads the book.
Yeah, and with any of these earlier works that we're talking about, I would recommend checking the Internet Archive. They have a lot of the earlier King stuff out there, and some of it can be a little harder to find, especially if you don't have a Audible subscription. If you're trying to find this at a local library or purchase it, or find it, if you're going to sell the Seven Seas.
Again, this story is also encompassed in that Bachman books collection that we mentioned last week. So if you get your hands on that book, that has the 4 stories: Rage, The Long Walk, The Running Man, and Road Work.
So we'll take the time to kind of go over the overview of the film here. Once again, directed by Francis Lawrence, probably most known for I Am Legend. And if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, I think he did the first 2 Hunger Game films.
3. I think he did 3 out of the 4.
3. Okay, there's 4 of them. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, so it stars Cooper Hoffman as Garrity and David Johnson as McVrees. I was not aware of any of these actors' works beforehand.
I knew David Johnson from Alien Romulus from last year, so he was a standout in that film. And then I was really happy to see him in this one. And man, he does, arguably the best performance in the movie, but Cooper Hoffman is also a big standout as Ray Garrity. And I learned after the movie, because I'm looking at him the whole movie and thinking, and then he's the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. So another really very well-loved actor that passed away some time back.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy thing, because I didn't know that headed into this, and it's one of those things as I'm going through and putting together the notes for this show. I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, right? You could kind of see it after you hear it, kind of thing. But yeah, I thought both of them did a great job in the film. The movie itself kind of keeps the bare bones of the story intact. They don't go too off the reservation, which I appreciated. It's a walking contest. It still has the same kind of cruel rules. They're not exactly the same. We'll get into that a little bit more as we break down the differences between the book and the movie. And the oppressive presence of the Major and his soldiers is there, as you'd expect. There are some changes. The first one being, the number of walkers is cut in half. Instead of 100 boys, the movie gets about 50, which I think is easier to track, right? As far as
less extras, since we really want to focus on, maybe a dozen young men. Those are the standout cast. And then you just have less extras. There's still an unbelievable amount of death in this movie. So
yeah,
50.
And the competition itself, the pace is lowered from 4 miles an hour to 3 miles an hour, which is kind of small, but there's less of a physical demand on their body.
Well, if you go out and try, like, that's something that I did after reading this story, is I went out and I just tested myself to see, like, how fast is 4 miles an hour? Because I don't know, it just occurred to me 4 miles an hour is actually pretty hard pace to keep walking at. So 3 miles an hour is a lot more reasonable. It is startling the difference just 1 mile an hour makes.
Well, yeah, but it's not supposed to be fun. Right.
No.
So, that's kind of that
sure.
is one thing that a lot of people have brought up, is like that's it's a small change, but it does affect it. I think that it didn't, as far as like watching it goes, unless you're nitpicking, it didn't really make that big of a difference to me, honestly.
It was more believable to me because I'm like, these young men are supposedly walking hundreds of miles, the ones that make it that far. And 4 miles an hour, I can't see even 5 of them being able to go 300 miles at 4 miles an hour. That's a tough pace to keep when you're not sleeping. We're not talking about a marathon here. A marathon happens in the first couple hours, of the first day. So,
and so I mean, the book is very interior to what the walk itself and the conversation between each other, whereas the movie, there's long sections that are going through each character's mindset and kind of their memories, and it shows that more on screen. It kind of externalizes some of that drama of like their background of why they would be here doing this,
motivations.
Yeah, so you get more dialogue, some more emphasis on Garrity's family backstory, and just bigger moments that are specifically designed for the silver screen, for lack of a better term here. But with all of that being said, I think the one thing that the movie accomplished is still making it feel very very unsettling,
Right.
Knowing
I was really happy that they kept that, because the setting of the story in the book is the near future, which at the time that this book was released was the late 70s. Obviously, he wrote it in the 60s, but it wasn't published till the late 70s. So the fact that they kept that look in the movie, like, it worked for me. Like, that was the right choice in my mind.
And in some ways, they kind of get out of Garrity's head a little bit more in the film than they do in the book. They give you more visual about the amount of like fear he's having, and the desperation to continue walking is more shown through the lens of a camera than audio, or it doesn't just go into long monologues of him kind of going through it like he does in the book, which I think makes sense if you're putting it on film.
I feel like that's sort of the biggest difference when you're talking about a book versus a movie, especially with Stephen King as well, where he writes a lot of the time from the mind. You're understanding the motivation of a character because you're in the mind of that character, versus in a movie, it's the onus of the actor to portray those emotions and motivations through acting versus voiceover or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, with the character cuts, you kind of lose a little bit of the sense of the overwhelming dread just by the sheer amount of people that are going to die. But to me, it wasn't as big of a deal. There's a lot of reviews out there where it was a big deal to the person viewing it. I think it just depends on how strict, how letter of the law you're going to be when you're going into an adaptation kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like all of the important beats of the story on the page are covered in the movie. A lot of the famous lines from the book that you just want to hear the characters delivering there, so that there's a lot of love put into the movie, and you can tell that the person that wrote the screenplay and the person that directed the movie were fans of the written work.
Yeah, and I guess this is kind of the part we're going to get into here, some more key differences. The biggest thing is some of the characters themselves, right? So in the novel, there's a character named Scram, who has this subplot talking about his pregnant wife. So when his death happens in the novel, it's one of, if not the most depressing things in the entire book. He's not in the movie at all.
Right. And that they tie that little piece of story into another character in the movie. There is a character that has a wife, and they certainly cover that.
They kind of took his character and put it into multiple different characters.
Right.
And broke it up a bit. But as far as if you're a huge fan of this book, that might be something you're a little bummed out about. Is that character just missing in its entirety?
Something that Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
something that I've heard other people reviewing the book have said is that and this is common with Stephen King too, is that there's a huge cast of characters in his books, and this one's no different. And sometimes those characters can get a little confused or mixed around, and you're like trying to keep track of who's who and whose story is tied to who. And I feel like the movie helps to really define that. And I don't know, that was my experience anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're also getting a visual, right? So you can attach a name
To a face.
to a face visually versus creating those characters in your head and trying to memorize them. And usually in the sense of with the large cast of characters in a lot of the King novels, I tend to turn through these books pretty quick, so they stick in my mind more. But yeah, I could see if you're taking long gaps in between, if I'm going to read chapters 1 through 3 and then take 4 weeks off, you're going to come back to that thing, especially if you didn't have any notes.
Right.
You'd be like, wait, which character is that again? So I could see that.
Oh yeah, just as a note too, if you haven't read this book or seen the movie, spoilers ahead. Obviously, almost everyone dies, but we are going to spoil some of the main plot of this. So
Yeah,
definitely check it out.
If you've made it this far into a book review / movie review and we're worried about it being spoiled, that's kind of on you.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
Be warned.
Spoilers. So there's definitely going to be fans out there that are going to dislike some of the missing layers. And I think, the other thing is the ending of the book versus the ending of the film. How did you feel about that? Let's get your general temperature here.
Honestly, the beats of the story were so spot on for me personally. There was enough of them in the movie that tied to the book that I was going along. I was like, wow, this is exactly how it went in the book, and so on and so forth. Then you get to the end, and the 3 main characters that are left at the end, I'm like, all right, this is just like the book. But then you lose Stebbins before you lose McVrees, which is flipped. But then the fact that they do that big twist at the very end where it's instead of Garrity being the last walker, which you just fully expect because this movie really focuses on McVrees and Garrity, but Garrity, for anyone that's read the book, knows he's the main character. And they just flipped that on you. And so it was kind of a shock to me. I was surprised, but also not in a bad way. It made for more of a, I don't know, an emotional experience at the end of the movie.
Yeah, to some extent, I agree with you. I will say, I bet when this gets released on Blu-ray, there'll be 2 endings. And
Sure.
that they probably ran this through a test audience to see how the audience in a theater reacted to the original ending.
Well, sure. I mean, if they could just do it just like the book. And I think that they tried that, and then they tried this ending, and people were like, there was some shock. Like my, I guess my experience was shock because it wasn't what I expected. And that's fine. Like for me, I want a movie to be familiar enough to the written work that I'm enjoying what I know from the book, but different enough that I still get a new experience. And I think that they accomplished that.
I prefer the ending of the book. I think
Yeah.
the ending of the book is it's very unsettling, right? So Garrity wins, but we don't know the level of exhaustion. It kind of just ends with him running towards a dark figure.
Right.
Which could be him running to death.
The major comes up, puts his hand on his shoulder. He's like, you've done it, young man. Tell the world what you want for your wish. And he's so lost from this an unbelievably harrowing experience that he doesn't even realize that he's the last walker. He thinks he sees a shadowy figure ahead, that Stebbins is still out walking him or something. So it's one of those, like, the book leaves it a little bit more up to the imagination about how this story turns out versus, the movie gives you a definitive ending.
I think, the book gives you an ending that could be multiple things, right? Just pure exhaustion, furthering those hallucinations that happen throughout the book, or it could be that he also died.
Sure. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That no one wins, right?
Yeah.
Like, he gets the hand put on his shoulder, what's your wish? And then he gets shot. So there's a lot more depth to it than the ending they gave us. But the ending they gave us in the film is probably a better film ending, because you could go the same way if you think about, like, the end of The Sopranos, right?
Yeah,
you're leaving the viewer with the not knowing, which doesn't always work well.
I've
or
seen it work
translate to the screen well.
I've seen it work in films, but the fact that this one doesn't do that didn't bother me at all. I always say it, like, when I have these conversations with you or my wife or anyone, that it's a book, a movie being made of a book doesn't ruin the book. You still have the book. So
Right. And in this particular instance, like I said, I do tend to enjoy the end of the novel a little better, because I like to think about it. Right. I like for that stuff to kind of sit in my craw. Like, all these years later, The Sopranos, I brought up as an example, people still talk about it. They still think about it. Right. Whereas the heroic ending that they kind of give us in the movie, which I'm going to go over what happens in the film after I finish up this thought, but it's kind of, it did feel very Hunger Games, right? Like, that's kind of the opposite.
Right.
Where you get the redemption arc.
Brotherhood, camaraderie, sacrifice, all of the above.
So, just to go ahead and put this out there once again, if you've made it thus far and don't want the exact spoilers of both of these things, which you kind of got one already, but the movie itself, it takes a different route. Garrity sacrifices himself, where he is the winner in the original. In the novel, he wins. And here, he sacrifices himself so that McVrees can win, and McVrees actually kills the Major in kind of one final act of rebellion. It's definitely more cinematic. Like I said, it is very much the Major has to die here kind of thing. So instead of this ambiguous horror ending, or this psychological ending where you can really think about it going home, you're getting something a little closer to closure to finish it out, and even to some extent some vengeance of what all of these boys have went through.
Well, also, if you just back up a little bit in the movie, that the conversation that McVrees and Garrity have, and at some point Garrity opens up to McVrees, just in a personal conversation when no one else is near them, and tells them that his motivation for the winning the walk is that he's going to wish for a carbine, not just any, the one that the soldier on the side of the road has, and then he's going to kill the Major. So you understand that, and then there is some backstory that's shared in the movie as to why he wants to kill the Major, which we can talk about as well.
Yeah, so I guess let's get into some of the critic reviews, right? Might as well. I pulled some that I thought were interesting, and I guess any of those, but there's a lot. They've had a lot to say about this adaptation. Most of them very, very positive. Game Radar. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say widely, just in general, it's widely considered one of the best Stephen King adaptations of at least the last maybe 20 years.
Yeah, so that's exactly where I was about to get. Like, Game Radar went as far to call it one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever made, praising how it captured the bleakness intensity of the walk They especially love the performances of Cooper Hoffman bringing a quiet vulnerability to Garrity, while David Johnson's gives McFreeze real weight as both a friend and a foil, since they're going to be the last two, right?
Mm.
So Entertainment Weekly focused heavily on the ending. They noted how rare it is for King to endorse major changes when something's being adapted, but in this case, he actually approved the director's more cinematic finale. For them, that gave the permission to stand on its own rather than just being a copy of the book beat for beat. I still disagree with that, but
Yeah, well,
my review is going to be different than the people at Entertainment. Mario Lopez from Entertainment Weekly. I'm kidding. He didn't write the article,
right.
But
well, each person is going to have their own opinion. It's very subjective. Art is subjective, so it's not wrong to say you didn't care for it, or that you loved it. It's just your own experience. But yeah, it's interesting that we had a different experience because this is both one of our favorite Stephen King stories. And so the fact that, a movie would that we would have a different experience from such a well-made movie.
I like, it's just such a dark story there. And at the beginning we kind of said bleak. It sticks with you. There's something about it that just sticks with you. So as far as it being one of my favorites, it's because of that, right? Like the fact that, out of nowhere, like I'm sure 4 or 5 years from now, after not thinking about this since doing the show, it'll creep back into my head at some point. I'm like, oh, okay. And I think that's, for me, why I love it so much is that there's just little sections of it that'll always pop back in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did pull one I don't want to say bad example, but one example that was less than rave review, right? Which was from Screen Rant. So take that for what it is. There's tons of reviews on this movie, right? There's tons of fan reviews. There's tons of, I went with some major websites. I tried to go with one gaming website, an entertainment site, a Screen Rant, who specifically is just mostly clickbaity in their opinions to some extent. But Screen Rant pointed out that that in making the story more digestible for fans, the movie sacrifices some of the book's unsettling ambiguity, the psychological horror that comes survival thriller. Some argue that it doesn't quite hit the same nerve as the novel does, which I don't think is an insult to the film at all. And I think I will try to pull up the name of the person that wrote this article, because I think it's very well put, and I kind of fall in that same mindset. Like, I liked the movie a lot, but it does have a different feel, and you're going to get two different things from the novel that you would from than you would from the film, which is not always the case. Like Stephen King, sometimes he bitches the bitch, if we're being completely honest. Like, you're still getting the same feel if you read the book and versus watching the film.
That's sort of like my argument for why I like the movie, though, too, is because it's not exactly the book. So I got a different experience. I can still relish the book, and I know I will read it again, probably many more times in my life, just because it is one of my favorites. But I didn't feel like the movie necessarily gave you what the book gave you, but that was fine for me. So,
yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's just so crazy because it is a very enjoyable. It was an enjoyable experience, and I really liked it. But I also understood my friends that told me they didn't like it. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's one of those things that this particular story, while it's definitely not as far as mainstream Stephen King goes, right? Like, it's not your It or your Pet Sematary or your Carrie. For the fans of his, and this is definitely the most popular Bachman book.
Oh yeah,
like without a doubt, right? So, I I can see it both ways. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I like your take on it of it's a different experience, and I enjoyed both of them, which I did as well. But it is one of those things where you're like, yeah, I probably would have done it a little different.
Sure. Yeah, and being that this film has been in development hell and been attached to different directors and different studios over the last 40 years and just never quite got to the finish line with anybody until 2025, that this is what we got. And I think it's, at least in my opinion, it's as good of an adaptation as you could possibly hope for. Choices are always going to be just that. It's going to be an individual's taste. And so that I totally understand where you're coming from too, where it's like, well, that ambiguity of the character at the end just being so lost, and that leaving it up to you as the reader to make up your own mind about what really happens at the end. That certainly makes for an affecting experience that lingers, in your mind for weeks, if not, just permanently, where you just comes up in your head. You're like, what really happened there?
Yeah, it's this one was so tough for me because I actually really, like I said, I really liked the film. I would definitely recommend people to see it. People that have no affiliation with Stephen King or don't care or just looking for an intense thriller. This one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. In a year where I think, in a year where I don't think movies have been that great as far as what's came out, this one's pretty good.
Definitely. It's, for me, it's a top 5 for 2025 movies. And of course the year's not over, but yeah, it's pretty solid. I mean,
now I will say my opinion on films is going to be very different than, like, if you're really into art house stuff. I'm sure there's some great documentaries and things that I haven't watched out there. I'm talking about from the absolute mainstream things that get released in theaters that I would be able to potentially see soon after, a month later, on, like, say, being able to rent it on a streaming service. Right, because I am sure there's some wonderful things out there that I have not seen yet.
But yeah, as far as
Oscars,
as far as Stephen King adaptations, 2025 has been a pretty good year for Stephen King adaptations. If you look at what has come out, The Monkey being one great example of a very interesting take, on the short story.
The Monkey is super fun, and I actually probably like that adaptation better than this adaptation, but I don't have the affinity for the short story that I have for the long one. So it's kind of a weird,
he's written
torn scenario there.
King's written hundreds of short stories and included them into collections. So it's easy enough to kind of lose track of some of these smaller stories, and that I liked. Yeah. Anyway, that's for another time to talk about.
That might be the next show, guys.
Right. So let's leave that beat for now. But
so I took time and I sent you the notes on this. I have my personal opinions and favorite moments. And I'll kind of go through these, and if there's anything that you want to say after or say in between, just yell, scream, holler, whatever.
Sure.
But I had to get it on paper because I knew if I was talking about it in a normal conversation, I wouldn't be able to put it in the words that I actually felt about how much I love the book. I tried earlier in a different segment that we were doing. But yeah, for me, the book is unforgettable because of its intimacy. You're stuck inside of Garrity's head. So every step he takes, every movie he makes, no, I'm kidding. Until you almost feel like the rhythmic pattern, the way I start reading it, like I can hear him talking step after step in my head, which I think is one of the great things about the book. It's very claustrophobic. the dread itself, the knowing that you're walking to your death, right? Like imagine walking down an endless road and there's nothing at the end of it, and you don't really have a real reason to continue walking by the end of it. It's one of my favorite, it's that's what makes it so great. It's the psychological part. And the movie, I think, for the most part, especially as far as like cinematography goes and some of the long wide shots they did, they give you a good sense of that.
Yeah. Performances as well. Like I feel like that the actors knocked it out of the park. And when it came to that, making you believe that these young men either became friends or rivals, whatever combination you're talking about there.
And it's kind of the mix of the rivalry and friendship that is what makes it human. Like,
yeah.
We're competitive, right? You and I are competitive.
Absolutely.
We played Overwatch together. We know how but no, all joking aside, it's what makes it very human, right? That at the end of the day, they're friends that are marching towards death together, which goes more into what you were saying about like this is coming out of Vietnam. This is people being sent to war that don't want to go to war. They're being drafted. It is that same kind of sense of things to it. And I think that's kind of what makes it like this beautiful human story of the guy that's lose, let's join this competition, let's walk, and then not wanting to be the one that loses.
That's discussed, in the book as well as the movie, just motivations, like each of those young men that they volunteer for the walk. It's not like they're drafted per se, like they sign up, but then there's this discussion along the way in the book and the movie where it's like, did we really choose this, or is this just a best case scenario in this really awful world that we live in, and we're just trying to find an escape hatch that either we're gonna have a better life or we don't have to deal with this anymore.
This is exactly why these movies are being made right now. Not to get super political or anything, but the fact that The Long Walk is coming out and The Running Man is coming out shortly thereafter, and they both kind of follow the same theme of I don't have to be here, but I chose to be here because I don't have a better option.
Yeah,
is very terrifying. It was terrifying when I first read it. Now in 2025. It hasn't gotten any better. In fact, probably a little worse.
Yeah, depending on where you're sitting, in this world, not just America, but in the world today, that's always going to be a question you're asking yourself, like, are things getting better? And I mean, people are going to have different opinions about that, but yeah, certainly a big question that everyone's asking themselves right now.
And I also threw some things out here about the movie. I said, the movie has its strengths. Seeing the walk brought to life on screen, very powerful. Looks crazy. The long stretches of road, the sweat, the exhaustion, it kind of gives you the feel of The Walking Dead when they're walking down this just like emptiness, like highway, or even Mad Max, right? Like it's got that vibe to it. So I actually love the way that it was shot as far as that. And,
interesting side note about that, because I was watching some behind the scenes of this movie, and the actors over the course of whatever 3 months that they filmed it walked over 400 miles in the filming of this. So
they're in way better shape than me right now, is what you're saying.
Or they were, a couple years ago when they made this.
That's a good point. They made this 2 years ago. I probably could beat them in a walk now. Challenge Hoffman's kid. Hey, let's walk. He's like, I don't want to walk anymore. That would be me after filming this movie. I'm done with walking.
I think if you got an honest opinion from these guys, they would be like, that was an incredible experience that I wouldn't trade for anything, but I'm never going to do anything like that ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, you put like you're in their car, you put like Walk by Pantera on, they just kick you out. Like, get out of here. Get out of here, dude. Um, yeah, so my favorite scene in the movie is probably the first death. I
Yeah,
think they did a great job of nailing that, right?
absolutely. And not just visually, but also just like the feeling, like that gut punch feeling that you see in the characters' faces as they witness that reality of
This
one of
is
their
real.
own.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is real. We're here now. Like as soon as the death happens, they all react the same way of like it's almost like they thought it was like a dream to them until that moment when the first person dies. And it's like that in the book too, and I think that's why it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
I want to say that McVree's actually that David Johnson delivers a line in it where he's all, says it along the way, where he says something to the effect of, I thought when we started this that we'd get to a point and someone would get their ticket, the soldier would pull the trigger and a little flag would pop out and it'd say, just kidding, let's all go home now. Something
Yeah,
like
they
that.
get hit with a paintball and they're moved off the field.
Right.
And
Which,
it's a reality TV show kind of thing.
yeah, that I could see, speaking of that, just to kind of riff on that, I could totally see Mr. Beast making a video like this. 100 people walking.
Right. Mr. Beast's house from Texas to where's he at? North Carolina? Something like that. I feel like it's North Carolina.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I watched that Ryan Trahan guy do that Penny to America thing or Penny Across America, which is crazy, by the way. That's a fun series that he did, and all that money went to charity. So if you haven't seen that and you like YouTube and want something to watch, Ryan Trahan's Penny Across America. That's a fun watch. He takes a penny, he trades it for a pencil, he changes the pencil for something else. It goes
Oh yeah,
over and over and over. Yeah. So, but anyways, I'm assuming he lives in North Carolina because I think that's where that ended at. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Me and Mr. Beast, I'm not that internet popular yet, Chris.
Fair enough.
That I can call him by his real name.
What is his name? Something Donaldson, isn't it?
His name is Jeff.
Oh.
his name is not Jeff. Anyways, I did a whole section about broader reflection, but I've already kind of talked about it. It is just the uncertainty at the end of the book of what actually happens versus getting the outcome. I think the thing that Stephen King has been criticized for forever about is giving you an actual ending, giving you a good ending.
Very true.
The movie gives you a very concise action film ending. So if that's what you're looking for out of a Stephen King book, then you'll probably like the movie more than the book. Honestly.
It's wrapped with a bow on top, at the end. Like there's no question about what happened at the end of this movie. You know exactly. There's no leave it up to the viewer or the reader, sort of thing that the book does. Honestly, yeah, that you're right when you say that, the book lingers with you, and maybe that is a fault of the movie because the movie is like, and this is the ending, and you're like, all right, that's the ending
for now. That's the ending because A Long Walk Part 2 incoming.
Right.
This is the Hunger Games guy. We have 4 long walks.
Well, I mean, it does happen every year in this universe, so.
Well, no, that major got killed though, so it should be the end. But that was also not the end of the Hunger Games.
It's not the end of the Hunger Games or the end of the book. The major doesn't die in the book either. So
yeah, they could retroactively change the finish of this. Well, I said finish like it's a wrestling match, but they could change the end of this movie to start a second movie and be like, "Nah, he hallucinated all that. We shot him as soon as he crossed the finish line."
Yeah.
Which would fit more into what I think happened in the novel. of like.
Right, much more nihilistic sort of take on.
But yeah, so getting the conclusion for me, The Long Walk, does it work as a movie? Yes, totally works as a movie. Go see it. It's worth seeing in the theater. I actually think this is a film that is worth seeing in the theater.
I agree.
I think it stands on its own as far as the things that it does different than the novel or the book. And fans, diehard fans of the book are going to notice the things that they don't like or are different. What I would try to say to those fans is, I don't know, maybe drink like 4 beers, bud, and just enjoy it. which is what I did. And then think about it later. And then you can always come back. Because we did this in a different order than we originally expected. So I saw the movie, then listened back to the book, then we're doing the show. And I actually feel better about the movie than just drawing it from memory like I was as I was watching the movie.
Yeah, I would tend to just agree with you on that as a conclusion, that I just really enjoyed my experience in the movie. Highly recommend anyone that has read the book to see it in theater. You're gonna enjoy the sound design of this movie is really great. Like the feeling when you hear the gunshots, it's really well done. So that type of thing, like you may not get that experience when you watch it at home. That's certainly part of the allure of the movie theater.
And I think that's, for me, that's kind of all I have to say about it. I think both versions are worth experiencing. If you've made it thus far and have not seen either, like have not seen the film or read the novel, there's not a specific order for me that you should do it in. I don't think it really matters. Right? It'd be weird that you listened to the whole show and made it this far, but thank you for listening. I don't think there's a specific order for this. I think you could watch it and you're going to get 2 completely different outcomes. It's almost like playing a video game and picking, like, what is that game we played, A Way Out?
Yeah.
Where both endings are kind of good endings, but
they're
different.
It's at its core, it's the same story, but there's enough difference between the movie and the book that they're both worth enjoying. And like you're saying, it doesn't really matter. Like watching the movie first, if you haven't read the book, isn't going to ruin the book. It might even enhance your reading of the book. So,
right. Now, I will say, this Blood Meriden thing that's been on the table for forever, don't do this. Do not change it. Don't start tweaking the formula, brothers. The separate Cormac McCarthy podcast that I will solo put out. Don't. But yeah, for this one, I think it worked. And so overall, both of us are thumbs up on this, right?
Absolutely. I would give it 2 thumbs up. Both book and movie are a big 2 thumbs up from
2.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to say about the film?
Something it's the smallest thing, but it's something that I missed it when I read the book. I didn't really even think about it. And then the movie kind of with McVries having an ambiguously, maybe he's gay or something to that effect. And then I was like, but that wasn't in the book. And then when I reread the book, I'm like, oh, there is that maybe McVries is he's gay for Garrity. And I was like, oh, that was an exact translation from the book.
This checks out with the weird Stephen King college years, as we just read Rage, and there's definitely some questioning of the main character there, thinking that he's gay because he can't get a hard-on after doing drugs.
Sure.
Listen to the first episode, boys.
People figuring themselves out in these, in these years of their life.
If you skipped Rage and went straight to Long Walk when looking at this podcast, go back and listen to Rage, because we definitely talked about this in the first episode. But yes, I noticed that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not a super important piece. I noticed that when I watched the movie, and I was like, that's maybe something they just added. And then when I went back to the book, I was like, oh no, that was a thing in the book as well. So
Yeah, King, I mean, like I said, in Rage, it's kind of a similar thing, right? Where he kind of walks that line of what the character's sexuality is. It's never really given to us.
right, you can, again, that's sort of a fun thing about King, and in this book especially, like we've been talking about, is the ambiguity, and you can make what you will of certain things and read into it more or less. So that yeah. Anyway, just a little side note, but thank you everyone for listening to our podcast. I'm Chris Clawson.
And I'm Christopher Patton. Chris Clawson, do you have any socials you want to put out there for the people?
Well, Bachman's Basement. Certainly check out our our socials on X and Instagram. I don't know where we're at right now. I haven't actually gotten to.
We're everywhere, baby.
So yeah, check those out. And tune in next week for sure. We're gonna have another great episode for you. We'll leave it a mystery for now.
We'll leave it. We're undecided, but as a teaser, it will either be about monkeys or Blade Runner. One of the two. If you want to hit me up on socials, it is christopher.r.patton on Facebook, christopher.r.patton on Instagram, and christopher.r.patton on Twitter. And check out Boink Studios. Boink Studios is the home of Bachman's Basement, also the Christopher Patton Report, or the Chris Patton Report. All of these wonderful podcasts are on Spotify. They're on YouTube. They're going to be on whatever downloadable platform you want. iTunes is being a little bit of an asshole right now. So if you're an iPhone user, just download the Spotify app and use that instead, like a normal person. But outside of that, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. That's all for this episode of Bachman's Basement. Keep your pace above 4 miles an hour. Keep your head down. And whatever you do, don't stop walking until we see you next time.